It used to be just a morning beverage, the drink you needed to start your day, something you ordered with breakfast at a diner. But now it seems coffee is ingrained in our culture. Coffee houses have become social spots.
We wanted this to be a place that was community oriented.
Coffee orders have become more sophisticated.
It's so nuanced, depending on how much water you put in, how much you grind it, what your brew process is, and the way it's processed.
Coffee mugs have become trendy.
Everything here, especially at the warehouse, is kind of a raw, rustic, industrial feel.
And over the years, more and more local entrepreneurs have made coffee their livelihoods.
Just seeing coffee businesses start growing up, especially here in San Antonio, there's a lot more shops, local shops establishing in the past 2 years.
But how did that happen? And when did coffee become so cool?
KSAT explains.
KSAT explains.
KSAT explains. KSAT explains. On-demand, in-depth perspective. Perspective on stories we bring you in our newscasts throughout the day. We're looking into concerns over voting safety during a pandemic and the battle over mail-in voting. A look at how the protests and demonstrations have played out in our city and an examination of what it means to be black in San Antonio.
An issue that you have likely felt the effects of, rising property taxes.
The roots of Tejano run deep in South Texas. We examine the cultural impact the music has had in San Antonio.
This week, KSAT Explains is taking a deep dive into coffee culture. It's not just something we drink to wake up in the morning. The way we consume and even talk about coffee has changed over the last several years. Here in San Antonio, cafes have popped up all across town. There are now seemingly limitless options for you to get your caffeine fix. In this episode of KSAT Explains, we'll talk about the history of coffee, how it's made, and the evolution of the local coffee industry. But none of this would be possible if it weren't for people who were so passionate about this very topic. We talked to one man who was dedicated his entire career to researching the science behind coffee.
I'm the Chief Research Officer for the Specialty Coffee Association. I've been working in coffee for over 30 years. I got a job as a barista when I was in college, and I never left. Coffee is amazing because you grow it thousands of miles away, right? In some place like Ethiopia or Colombia or Indonesia. And if you grow it properly, process it properly, ship it properly, and it winds up on your breakfast table in San Antonio, Texas, somehow miraculously, its flavor can tell you where it's from. Months after it was harvested, thousands of miles away from where it was harvested. That's the amazing thing about coffee and what captivates people like me. I mentioned Ethiopia, which is where coffee is from and where people first drank it. And if you go to Ethiopia, they perform a thing called the Ethiopian coffee ceremony. And it's a highly ceremonial thing where a woman, it's always a woman who's a senior member in the community, will roast coffee, prepare it, grind it, and prepare it in this highly ceremonial way. And if you ask an Ethiopian person what the coffee ceremony means, what they'll say is that's a time for people to come together and talk and share news and connect with each other. And there's something about coffee in its chemistry, the way it affects us, right? It stimulates us a little bit, but it also makes us somehow more social and more talkative. And so ever since that beginning in Ethiopia, up into the souk of Arabia, where the coffee houses first got established, through Europe, coffee became a place where people would come together, interact with each other, have a social moment over this delicious beverage. But then as you go along, you realize that another way that coffee connects people is through the supply chain, right? So when you start to work in coffee, you start to learn the names of coffee producers in Honduras or Ethiopia, as I mentioned, or Kenya or Indonesia, and you begin to feel a connection with these places that are so far away. And that gives a sense of community at the global level, And I think even the consumer gets a sense of that, when they drink a cup of coffee from one of those places. They feel a little bit of a connection there, and that's a human connection more than, a thing about stimulation or fuel.
Now let's take it back even further and look at what we know about the history of coffee.
The origins of coffee are a little bit mysterious. No one is 100% sure how it was discovered or exactly when, but there are some theories. Here's a popular one that the National Coffee Association buys into. Some say coffee was discovered by a goat herder named Kaldi in 9th century Ethiopia. Legend has it that Kaldi noticed his goats seemed wired after eating the berries from a certain tree. Kaldi then took the coffee berry to some monks who consumed the fruit, and they got a similar kick. Word spread, and people began consuming the coffee fruit in different ways for a boost of energy. Coffee cultivation and trade began on the Arabian Peninsula. The beverage's popularity spread, and soon it was enjoyed not only at home, but at public coffee houses across what was known as the Near East.
Coffee houses became a social spot, a place for people to hang out, to talk to each other, or even listen to music.
By the 17th century, travelers brought coffee back to Europe. Author David Liss, who wrote a historical novel centered around the coffee trade in 17th century Amsterdam, says it wasn't long before coffee became a social thing.
People would drink coffee when they gathered to talk about politics or religion or business. And over the course of time, what happened was that coffee shops became very specialized. So members of different political parties or factions within political parties would all meet at a particular coffee house.
But in the Western world, not everyone trusted the new beverage. Some people even went so far as to call it the bitter invention of Satan. Yikes. And clergy condemned coffee in Venice. When Pope Clement VIII was asked to weigh in on the matter, he reportedly tasted the beverage, but found it so good, he gave it his approval. In the mid-1600s, coffee was first brought to the New World, but it really gained popularity after the Boston Tea Party of 1773, when colonists fought back against the heavy tax on tea imposed by King George III. Switching from tea to coffee became somewhat of a patriotic act.
Most of us don't think about how our coffee actually gets into the cup, how it starts out, how it's roasted, how it's processed. We just want it brewed and poured. But making it all the way into your mug, that actually takes a lot of work.
Coffee beans start out as seeds. They're planted in large beds. They require a lot of care until they're hardy enough to be permanently planted. It takes about 3 to 4 years for coffee trees to bear fruit. That fruit is called the coffee cherry. They're harvested once they're ripe. In most countries, the crop is picked by hand and it's labor-intensive. Once they're picked, the cherries are processed in one of two ways, the dry method or the wet method. In the dry method, cherries are spread onto a surface to dry in the sun until the moisture content in the fruit drops to 11%. The wet method, that's a little more complicated. A pulping machine is used to separate the skin and the pulp from the bean. After that, they have to be dried. Before being exported, the beans are milled. This can be done by hand or by machine. The milled beans, aka green coffee, is now ready to be shipped. It's placed into either jute or sisal bags.
Coffee comes to us in these sacks over here, about 150-pound bags.
The next step, roasting.
We run it through our roaster, and the process is kind of complicated, but long story short, we're bringing it to a certain temperature, and as it starts to roast, it comes to that temperature, and you'll hear it pop, kind of like popcorn, and that's the bean essentially doubling in size. And then whenever we decide to drop the bean is when it's finished roasting.
After roasting, the beans are immediately cooled either by air or water. Then they're ready to be ground up and brewed.
So we've talked about the history and the process, but now let's look at how a morning beverage evolved into an all-out trend.
I think somewhere along the way it just had the fortune of becoming cool.
Specialty coffee is now a trend. We're in what's known as the fourth wave of coffee. So what's that? What were the 3 first waves? Well, coffee connoisseurs describe the first wave as a time when coffee just wasn't that creative.
Well, I think for a long, long time, coffee was just a commodity. And it was just something you used to wake up, and that was it. You didn't care what it tasted like, and you almost grew to expect it to taste bad.
This coffee is often thought of as super dark and bitter, the kind you find in a tin at the grocery store.
Coffee became an item in a supermarket aisle rather than this sort of experience. And there was a group of people that decided, no, we want to reclaim coffee's culinary origins.
In the late 60s to early 70s, companies like Peet's and Starbucks brought about what's known as the second wave.
People like to say negative things about Starbucks, but Starbucks really paved the way for the rest of the specialty coffee industry.
Businesses like Starbucks helped bring non-coffee drinkers to cafes by offering a wide variety of drinks.
In the late 90s and early 2000s, another generation, that's my generation, started coffee companies with and had a different focus, more on sort of culinary expression and this kind of connection.
And now we're once again entering another wave.
Some people call it the fourth wave. Some people call it the tidal wave because there's so many coffee companies now, small coffee companies that are established all over the place.
A lot of the focus of recent coffee trends has been on education.
People care about they don't just want a cup of coffee. They want to know where the coffee's from. They want to know how it was roasted. They want to know the process and how it was milled and the elevation.
And these days, atmosphere is important. That's because more people aren't just grabbing their drinks and going. They're actually spending time at these cafes.
I've seen the seasons of coffee shops being very utilitarian and very, I'm on my way to work, I need a cup of coffee, and I don't want to know who you are, I just want to get out of here. And then I've seen coffee shops turn into virtual workspaces.
People increasingly use coffee shops as places to work or conduct business. And that is definitely more true today than it was, 10 or 20 or 30 years ago.
And it's not just for work. People now spend time at cafes, just hanging out. It's an alternative for some to going to a bar. Some people have even theorized that shows like Friends and Seinfeld have influenced the coffee house boom.
Oh, no, thanks. I can't drink coffee late at night. It keeps me up.
Does anybody need coffee? Yeah, over here.
The boom is a welcome one for those who have made coffee their business.
I remember my family just being like, what are you doing with your life? Like, you're never going to make a living doing this. And look at me now.
Since 1990, Youth Q's mission has been to positively impact youth through the power of choral music. They've done this nationally and here in San Antonio through the San Antonio Youth Chorale. SACY not only helps the youth, but the community too. Now they need your help as they raise their voices to support the San Antonio Food Bank. Youth Q and the San Antonio Youth Chorale would like your support in reaching their goal of raising $60,000 for the food bank. You can help them right now by visiting my.safoodbank.org/youthq and make a donation to aid the food bank. $1 can make up to 7 meals. So whether you give $1 or $100,000, you're changing the lives of those who receive that gift. Show your support now by making a donation at the link on your screen.
KSAT Community, in partnership with University Health System, Energy Transfer, and RBFCU.
A good friend of ours changed his entire life for coffee. Charles Gonzalez, remember him? He used to be my KSAT co-anchor on Sunday nights, but then he fell in love with coffee and made a total career change. He opened up a coffee shop here in San Antonio. I caught up with my buddy to talk about what he has learned, literally traveling the world in the name of coffee.
For starters, why did you ditch us for coffee?
Fair question.
For years, we anchored together on Sunday nights, but then Charles changed things up, ditching the anchor desk for the coffee counter. Not exactly breaking news to those of us who know him.
We all know that when you talk about coffee, you are passionate about coffee. Like, you're into it. So,
You can say nerd.
Nerd or not, for Charles, coffee is fascinating.
You could take the same bean from the same farm, process it 3 different ways, then roast each of those 3 different ways, and then brew them 3 different ways. So, you could have, from one bean, you could have 27 different types of drinks at the end. And that's, I think, what's really interesting about coffee is it's so nuanced.
That nuance became knowledge for Charles and eventually a business. He opened Rosella in 2014. Multiple locations followed. Today, he travels the world working for a company that sells commercial espresso machines.
So when somebody says coffee culture, what is coffee culture to you?
I guess it kind of depends, who you are and where you're from, because in some cultures it's very different. Like I would say, in the Middle East, there's, for religious purposes, a lot of people don't drink alcohol. So cafes are like the bars. I mean, there are a lot, our customer there, he'll go out to a cafe at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night and they're packed. There's a lot of people there, and that's what they drink, and that's kind of like the way they socialize. So coffee culture there could be very different from what it is, here in the States, because most people in the States, they're not looking to drink coffee, after 6 o'clock at night. Maybe like a little espresso after dinner, but it's not like, hey, let's go out and go hang out and drink some coffee. That's not a thing.
Like a lot of coffee connoisseurs, Charles points to Starbucks as the engine that kickstarted coffee to what it is today in the U.S.
I think, for lack of a better term, I think they just kind of made coffee sexy, with the names or the way the drink looked, or what it sounded like. It's like, ooh, it's a frappuccino. It's like, well, it's a blended iced beverage. Yeah, but no, it's a frappuccino.
So how does he like his?
I mean, there's coffee from Ethiopia, which is my favorite, which can taste just like blueberries. It's almost like, there's still coffee, but it's like it has this strong blueberry flavor. There's some like from Kenya that has a really, acidic grapefruit flavor.
My husband tells me my coffee preference is motor oil. I like it strong, apparently.
To this day, Charles is still learning about coffee, doing the very thing that got his second career brewing years ago.
I think back then, 10, 11 years ago, you could probably count on one, maybe two hands, the number of independent coffee shops and roasters that were in San Antonio.
Now, if you want a good cup of coffee in San Antonio, there are quite a few options. There are cafes, coffee trucks, even places that roast their own beans in-house. Depending on what you're looking for, there's pretty much something for everyone. But that was not always the case.
If you've been following the evolution of coffee culture locally, you've probably been to, or at least heard of, local coffee. Founder Robbie Grubbs opened the original cafe on Sonterra Boulevard back in 2009. He says he was inspired after visiting a coffee shop in Austin, where he was impressed by both the coffee and the atmosphere.
The people that worked there, they weren't order takers. They were guys that were truly interested in my life. I was interested in theirs.
Grubbs, who had been working as a home builder, had a history with coffee. He helped open the very first Starbucks in Texas, in Plano. He used both passions to create local coffee.
It was the marriage of those two. I just had this light go off, and I was like, my God, if I could get a hold of this roaster and have coffee like this and train these employees to be craftsmen and peers of the people that came in and not just order takers, but put it in something beautiful.
At first, he was worried that what he was doing wouldn't catch on.
When we opened, it was a lot of, nobody had ever had anything like what we were serving. There was days in the beginning, trust me, when it was like crickets. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
But coffee culture did take hold in San Antonio. And over the course of the next decade, several other locally owned coffee shops opened across town, like Shotgun House Coffee Roasters.
In 2017, after a visit to Brown Coffee, my mom suggested that I start roasting coffee. Started roasting on the front porch of our Shotgun House in Tobin Hill, and quickly started doing some pop-ups in our front yard.
Shotgun House Roasters owner Eddie Laughlin says that he was surprised at how popular his pop-ups became, with people willing to buy hot cups of coffee out of his house, even on the hottest of summer days.
We realized that if we wanted to be legitimate and, not get shut down by the police, that we would have to get a legitimate roasting space.
Shotgun House Roasters opened its first brick-and-mortar cafe on Buena Vista in 2018. Gold Coffee opened about a year and a half ago on South Flores. But founder Jason Tantaros has been in the coffee industry in some form or fashion for nearly 2 decades.
All the way from doing local mom and pop shops to Starbucks.
Tantaros says a major focus when creating his shop was cultivating an atmosphere that he describes as nice.
We're a shop, if we don't know you when you walk in, that's kind of rare, and then eventually you come back enough where we do know you.
Today, coffee trucks are even a thing. Marco Cardell opened Mila on Broadway in March of 2016 after years of working as a barista.
So I started somewhere as a barista back at North Star Mall in 2009.
He decided on a truck instead of a storefront because financially it made more sense.
Definitely the expenses on it. I'm in a small local business owner, we don't have a lot of sources to spend, and a brick and mortar at the beginning and all that, so a truck was a good idea for us to make it good and cheap.
While our coffee community is relatively young, it has grown quickly.
I have had coffee in this city that rivals any other city I've been to.
The cool thing about San Antonio is that we became one of the, I think, more progressive cities in coffee in the U.S.
And even more roasters and cafes are opening up, each truck or cafe with its own vibe and aesthetic. As more people get into the coffee game, Tantaros hopes that coffee culture becomes more inclusive and approachable.
Coffee in general, nationwide, at some point kind of had this real snobbish, you can come in, but I'm going to tell you how to do things. We've all experienced a coffee shop that has criticized someone for putting cream and sugar in their coffee, or, not understanding what a natural process is, or you're paying $8 for a cup of coffee. I'm starting to see people, I feel, kind of lighten up about that. And I think the reaction to that is that we're going to see people get more creative.
They all agree there's room for everyone, which is something that makes the coffee business special.
I don't think that if you worked at, if you're the owner of HEB, you'd be happy to see somebody else go open up a grocery store next door. You know what I mean?
Grubb says it's that sense of community that creates the unique flavor of the coffee industry.
I used to think that everybody came back because the coffee was great. But a lot of people came back, they didn't really care about the coffee. But the person behind the bar just treated them with this, they're the most important person in the room when they walked in.
And San Antonio customers, he says, know that's the right blend.
And something I've grown up in San Antonio, I've known about San Antonio, it's an extremely loyal city. And that's exactly what happened, is that we came in, we put in the work in the beginning, and we built a customer base.
When we started planning this episode of KSAT Explains, we wanted to take a break from the topic of COVID-19 for a week. But we quickly found out that the coronavirus has seeped into every single aspect of life. And the coffee business is no exception. As the owner and operator of a coffee truck, Marco Cardell feels like he's been luckier than some others during the COVID-19 pandemic. Mila Coffee struggled when it had to close in March, but he says business has been good since reopening.
It was tough, and now, little by little, it's been getting better.
Cardell thinks the fact that his customers don't have to go inside to order and then wait for their drinks may be helping him out right now. He says he's taking all the necessary precautions, but the recent surge in COVID-19 cases in Bexar County still makes him uneasy.
Even if business is okay, we feel not super safe.
There seems to be more concern about the long-term impact of the coronavirus on more traditional coffee shops.
People in a dining room setting, I don't know if it's ever going to be the same. I am concerned there'll always be a certain level of discomfort, or at least for quite some time,
Robbie Grubbs worries about the particular vulnerability of coffee shops, many of which are built on a sense of community. Now in a time when people are being asked to keep their distance from one another.
God, 11 years into this, and we built so much culture and community in San Antonio through the cafes and our spaces. And now all of a sudden, I don't.
Local Coffee has pivoted to a to-go model, but still, Grubb says the shop is only doing about 50% of the business it used to do, and that's on a good day. He says he feels like one of the lucky ones. Local Coffee sits on prime real estate in the Pearl, and his shop was an established, healthy business going into this crisis.
A lot of businesses that were new, especially food and beverage, or that were month to month, this is challenging. It's challenging for everybody.
The past few months have been rough and uncertain for most. Both coffee business owners Eddie Laughlin and Jason Tantaros say they've been blown away by the support they've received from their customers. For a while in March, Shotgun House Roasters shifted entirely to an online model, offering free delivery.
I was doing 10, 15 deliveries a day. Our community really showed up.
Now, both Shotgun locations are back open to customers.
People are still coming in. It's not as busy as it was, but people are showing up to support, because I think people are learning now more than ever that it's important to support these local institutions that you've grown to love.
Tantaros worried that Gold would lose some of its appeal when it began limiting service to delivery and to go. But he says his customers have also been supportive.
I don't say it lightly. It was beautiful. It was amazing to see people excited to support you. And I think that really at the end of the day, They were just excited to have something also to go do.
And he believes his coffee has helped customers keep some sense of normalcy during this pandemic.
And it meant a lot that they were able to get this small little thing once a week, twice a week, whatever. They could get out of their house and come and be greeted by someone with a mask and get a cup of coffee.
The night beat. The day isn't over.
It'll be a very tense situation. Folks, this is live.
It's what's happening right now.
He heard the shots and ran for cover.
She was not allowed to record video or take pictures.
More investigations.
Crooks to break into a bar, then drive off with a whole ATM. You have no idea how long employees were exposed.
More stories affecting you.
This will be a major traffic nightmare.
Working to bring you more.
Night is not over just yet.
The Night Beat.
These are more than just the sounds of a safe place to go after school. These are the sounds of interest being ignited and of mentors making an impact. At Boys and Girls Clubs, we don't do just one thing. We do whatever it takes to meet the needs of every kid who comes through those doors. Because whatever it takes is what it takes to build great futures. Great futures start here.
One of San Antonio's most well-known coffee connoisseurs, Spurs guard Patty Mills. Mills loves a good cup of coffee, and he tells our RJ Marquez that it not only helps his team bond, but it also led to a fundraiser to help out victims of domestic violence.
They call themselves the Spurs Coffee Gang, and the ringleader is none other than Patty Mills. Over the past few seasons, Mills has blended his love for coffee into an opportunity to build a bond with teammates. Manu, Boris Diaw, Tiago Splitter, Rudy Gay, Bryn Forbes, and Derek White have all been part of the crew. Mills even gets his coffee fix during games.
The go-to is a flat white. I have a double espresso when I work out, so whether it's pre-workout or during workout, so at halftime, for example, of a game. But then if I'm relaxing and want a consistent little sip away, then it's a good house blend.
In May, Mills transformed his appreciation for a good cup of joe into a citywide fundraiser to help victims of domestic violence. With the help of 8 local coffee shops, including this one right here, he organized the Give Mama Coffee campaign on Mother's Day.
This has been a really special journey that we've been on to be able to build something that has meant a lot. And especially to me, who's been so much a part of the San Antonio community now for quite some time.
Mills encouraged San Antonians to shop at participating shops and then wrote a check to Family Violence Prevention Services, doubling the sales total. The campaign also helped bring business to local coffee shops hurt by the pandemic.
From a small business standpoint, what it has done is it's brought the coffee community together, which actually hasn't been done before.
Gold Coffee at Freight was one of those shops that got a boost from the campaign. Jason Tanteros has been serving Mills coffee locally for about 8 years.
The first time I met him, to me, he was just a customer. I had no clue who he was. It was really, really great to have someone come to us and ask us to be a part of something. Just to be able to make such a huge impact for, I think, such an ignored cause. Really meant a lot to us.
Patty's Give Mama campaign ultimately raised nearly $104,000 for the shelter.
I mean, that day was crazy. It was wild. We experienced something I don't think we ever thought as a business we would experience.
Just from a few cups of coffees.
Oh my goodness.
I wish we could hug right now, but...
Tonight, storms become likely.
When severe weather strikes.
Breaking into programming for just a few moments, we have multiple severe thunderstorms.
KSAT is live on air and on your Weather Authority app.
You need to seek shelter, okay? Seek shelter.
Use the radar to track the storm's path over your neighborhood. And if you lose power...
Just know if you're watching us on TV, you can stream what we're doing right now on the KSAT weather app.
Real meteorologists, real forecasts.
We'll get you through this and we'll let you know when the threat has passed.
Live on KSAT and on your Weather Authority app.
There are thousands of special needs caregivers in our community. Every day they serve as champions of compassion to a family member, a friend, neighbor, or an employer. They have served a special role during this pandemic that cannot be overlooked and must be acknowledged. Let us take this opportunity to thank the caregivers of the special needs community who are serving as warriors through their unselfish desire to make a real difference in the lives of our friends with special needs. Together, we are making a difference.
So whether you're meeting a friend or grabbing a little pick-me-up before work, being able to go to your favorite local coffee shop can be very convenient. And it's a great way to support local businesses. But come on, isn't one of life's simple pleasures just being able to enjoy your favorite brew at home in your pajamas with your cat? Yeah. Over the last 15 years or so, it seems that a lot more folks have been bringing the coffee shop home. According to the National Coffee Association and Statista, only 1% of American households had a single cup coffee maker back in 2005. Now by 2019, that number had increased to 41%. So yes, it would seem that we really love our Nespresso capsules and our Keurig K-Cups. And of course, a big draw of single cup coffee makers is the idea that you don't waste a lot of coffee, right? No more pouring half of a carafe or unused brew down the drain. But what we're saving in liquid really doesn't matter, because what we're wasting in plastic could leave a much bigger stain on our planet. According to storyofstuff.org, if you took all the used K-Cups in landfills and lined them up, they could wrap around the world nearly 10 times. And you might be thinking, these little things, they're really that bad? Well, the issue with K-Cups and other single-use coffee pods is that they're hard to recycle for a couple of reasons. One, their composition, the materials that make them up, and the fact that they are so small. USA Today claims it's hard for many recycling systems to pick up on the cups when they come through and remove them from general waste, again, because of their size. So if you're like me and you're feeling a little guilty for all these little cups that you've thrown in the trash, don't worry. There are a couple of things you can do. And probably the easiest thing would be to use a reusable K-Cup insert. These allow you to still use your single cup coffee maker, but without the plastic of the K-Cups or capsules. You just use your favorite ground coffee blend, then discard the grounds and rinse it out when you're done. But don't worry, you may not have to forego your K-Cups forever. According to Keurig's website, all K-Cup pods will be recyclable by the end of 2020, so that's some good news. However, as the consumer, you will be responsible for making sure your empty pods get to a facility that will recycle them properly. Until then, if you have used K-Cups around, just look online and you can find some really fun things to do with them, like actually making little tiny flower pots. How cute is that? So, cheers to single-serve coffee the sustainable way.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of KSAT Explains. Before we go, meteorologist Sarah Spivey has some tips on how to make the perfect cup of coffee at home. We'll see you next time.
Hey everybody, I'm meteorologist Sarah Spivey and welcome to my kitchen. And this is my husband, Michael Bringardner.
Hey,
Michael today is going to try to teach us how to make the perfect cup of coffee. He's a barista, and how long have you been in coffee for?
Been in coffee for about 8 years.
Yeah, so he knows what he's talking about.
So the materials and ingredients you'll need fresh whole bean coffee. You'll need some kind of a kettle. You'll need a receptacle for the coffee to go into. You'll need a scale to weigh things. You'll need the V60 dripper and a V60 filter and some way to grind beans.
So this grinder that Michael is using here is called a burr grinder. He's not going to do this right now because it's going to be way too loud. But basically what a burr grinder is it is two sets of discs that physically, literally grind the beans. Pure water is absolutely important because that coffee is 98% water. We have a Brita filter in there that we put that water in. That helps get all the impurities of the tap water out. If you just use tap water, you're gonna get all of the tap water flavors in your coffee, which is not great.
So you're going to place your receptacle on top of your scale. You're gonna put the V60 on top of that, balance it. And then you're going to take the paper filter. There's a little line right here on the edge, and you're going to fold over that so that it fits in the V60 like this.
Awesome.
So now you're going to take some hot water. You're going to pour it into the paper filter, and that's going to do a couple of things. One, it's going to preheat the vessel that you're going to be dripping your coffee into. It also wets the filter and gets a lot of that papery taste out of the filter, so that's not getting into your cup of coffee at the end. This next part is called the bloom. So you're going to put 20 grams of coffee right here into the middle of the filter. I'm going to make a little well with my finger right here in the center. And then we're going to pour 40 grams of water into that well and make sure that we get all of the grounds wet.
Basically what it does is as you do this, you'll notice some bubbles starting to form, right? And that's actually carbon dioxide from the beans that's being released. And we want to release some of this carbon dioxide. Mike's going to take a spoon and go north-south and east and west. You want to release some of those carbon dioxide bubbles because if you leave too much carbon dioxide in there, it's going to taste sour, and we don't want that sour taste. No.
And so we're going to wait for about 45 seconds. After 45 seconds, I'm going to start pouring right in the center, and then I'm going to slowly start doing smaller circles and then work my way out.
This whole thing is, I've done it recently and started to make my coffee this way in the morning. It's really nice to take this much time in your coffee and just be in control of all of the water elements from a really even pour, so that way you don't get chunks. Even just to how rich you want the coffee. You can mess around with the ratio a bit. We're doing a 1:15 ratio. We find that that makes a good coffee without making it obnoxiously strong. But you could also do it a little lighter if you wanted a little bit less of a coffee taste, and you could also make it really strong.
And so now we're gonna take the spoon and we're gonna do once clockwise and once counterclockwise. That's just gonna break off any of the grinds that want to stay on the side of that filter so we get an even extraction at the end.
Makes sense. So again, just to reiterate, we used 20 grams of coffee. We bloomed it for about 45 seconds, and then we used 300 grams of water there to really make for a really nice ratio.
And we'll take the spoon, I'm gonna stir the coffee up a little bit, and then we should just pour it right into your mug.
Yay! Wait, you should have some too.
No.
No, you don't.
This is all you.
Thank you. This is actually my first cup of coffee of the day.
And?
Thanks! This is great! So now we...
Thanks!
So now you know how to make the perfect cup of coffee at home. Again, you can add cream and sugar if you want, but I like my coffee black.